All right, we're live. We're back with another episode of Adapt and Achieve, and this is the first one that we have live streamed in about 3 weeks. I think 2 weeks straight we didn't have a live stream, just because it takes a lot of hands to be able to live stream something with just technical gear and things like that. But we're back today with a really exciting episode, and I think I'll be the first person to announce this on the podcast. But our guest is the CEO of MuuvWell, Mr.
Yep.
Kevin Wynn. Kevin's obviously been on the podcast multiple times and hosted it back in the day before he gave me the reins. But Kevin's officially the CEO of MuuvWell, and if you follow us on social, you see that we made an announcement. We had an official press release talking about how Kevin has acquired the business. This has been in the works for a long time. We'll get into all the details of that. Kevin will share as much as he can about that stuff, and what the future of the business looks like, how the operations may change, how they're going to stay the same, and just lack of better terms, like the freedom that comes with owning a business that you operate. So we're going to get into that today, and we've talked about this for months now
Yep.
about like being able to do this.
Yep.
And so we'll post more on social about create more content to go around this topic and discuss more on what it means with new owners. We're the same company, the same brand, just new ownership and a little bit direction. So first off, let's talk about like the process, because I think you'd probably agree, like in the beginning you're kind of naive, I'm sure, right? Like
Yeah.
I've never purchased a business or
Yeah.
been an owner of a business. So when did this process start, and I guess why did the process start? So I guess first give like the background. We've said it before, like the background of when you started MuuvWell and kind of the terms of
Right.
your position when you started, and then kind of talk about why you wanted to own it.
Yeah. First and foremost, I want to thank Dr. Turnbow and HealthWorks Medical and Patrick Howell, the CEO of HealthWorks. Like this couldn't have happened without their support. They really enabled myself and Kyle and Wade and everybody on the team to really build a product and build something we were passionate about, and supported us for several years doing that. And then also recognize that, they wanted us to be successful long-term, and they felt, as did we, like the best way to do that was for us to be able to acquire it from them. And so I'm forever grateful for that. And, it takes a lot for them to do that. I mean, they sold something that they kind of raised for 4 years, and, very thankful to them. We're still servicing their wellness clients through MuuvWell, so nothing's necessarily changing for the clients. And we love that relationship we have with HealthWorks, and we'll continue to work with them, partner with them, and just technically on paper have different owners now, which I think is good for both groups. I think it'll be a really good long-term relationship, and we can each really focus on what we're good at, and excited about that. So anyways, I just feel so blessed to be able to, to have partnered with a person like Dr. Turnbow that allowed me to be able to do this, because I was not in a financial situation 4 years ago where I could just started something from scratch. And so he really enabled that and made it happen. I've always wanted to own a business my whole life. I wanted to own a business since I was 5 years old, and I actually did. So I had K&M Science Museum. Me and my cousin Mark had a science museum in the garage that we actually had a couple of people show up to, which is stuff we had laying around the house. A bird nest we found in the yard. We had Flo's ice cream, was an ice cream wagon. We had a vegetable stand. We did stuff. I mean, my whole life I've been trying to build businesses. And I remember when I was in college, I was playing baseball at Louisiana Tech, and my senior year, our conference tournament was at the University of Hawaii, and we got eliminated 4 days early. So we had plane tickets to leave like we were going to win the championship. Unfortunately, we got eliminated, didn't go to the NCAA tournament. So I had 4 days in Hawaii that I had graduated from school. I was off the team, essentially. I was a senior at the time. And I could have done whatever the heck I wanted. Rules didn't really apply to me kind of at that point. And what I was doing at the Hilton in Waikiki Beach was I got on at the business center and got on and built a website called baseballperformance.net. And I started a baseball blog, and I was trying to start that. And so I've always been thinking about businesses my whole life. It's always something I've wanted to do. I've tried a million different things. I was giving baseball lessons, had a training company at the time, and different things on the side. But I've never really understood what it really meant to own a business and to be have to support a family when you own a business and make a leap from, being an employee to being a business owner is always a risk, Um, and what was so great about this initial setup with HealthWorks, essentially owning the business for 4 years, was I had an agreement to where, again, kind of hand of God, but, Dr. Turnbow allowed me to kind of accrue some sweat equity in the company without having to put up money up front. And along the way brought in some amazing people like you, but also Wade and Wade Weatherholt and Kyle Balliot, who are now partners in this new entity, and really saw in them, they really aspired to own something, be a part of something. And it's really hard, it was gracious enough for Dr. Turnbow to enable me to kind of accrue some sweat equity and something we started, but to just keep giving away more and more of your business to other people is a pretty big ask. And so, definitely saw, the need to be able to deliver that for them. And because I recognize without all of you on the team, like, this wouldn't be possible. And really wanted them to be here for the long term as well. And that was something they were aspiring for, and we talked about for a long time. And so through this, we were able to acquire the business fully, and so now they get to be partners in this as well. And just so grateful to have them to be here with me as well, to kind of share some of the burden, but also to help guide this thing and steer the ship and everything. So, I guess as far as timeline, I left a pretty steady job with a bigger medical practice here in Bowling Green, and actually had coffee with my old boss this morning, actually. And again, just learned so much there, and got to have a first before that the place I used to work got acquired by a bigger medical practice. He was a entrepreneur and sole owner, and really enabled me to learn a lot, see a lot. I followed him around, and asked questions, made mistakes, and he was patient with me. And got a firsthand look at what business ownership looks like just from kind of watching his life. And for better or worse, like, really wanted to try that myself, and couldn't do that back in 2020 when we started HealthWorks, but was able to kind of have that experience to build something with the support of a bigger group, which was HealthWorks. Probably a year ago, we started, growing and getting really passionate about the direction we wanted to take the company and the work we wanted to put into it. And, I think Dr. Turnbow recognized that, and we had a really good conversation about a year ago, and he's like, hey, you know what? I support you guys. I want you to be able to do what you want to do. And I want to support that and help you. And it took a long time. So we kind of started the process almost a year ago of just having those discussions and negotiations. And they were all good, by the way. Like, there was nothing volatile or anything like that. Yeah. There's always ups and downs, when you're trying to come to an agreement on something, but that's just part of it. Right.
Mainly legal stuff, I'm sure. Right?
Yeah, like it's just little. The CEO of HealthWorks, Patrick, always refers to them as ankle biters, and they really are, like, little things you don't think would slow processes down, just always slow it down. Yeah, and just little tiny things. So it just takes some time, but we were able to. I'm thankful that it took some time, because it enabled me to learn more and to prepare and be able to build an employee handbook and all those, like, little things that you've got to do along the way. And I think we'd have rushed into it, it'd been harder to have those things done in time. And so yeah, it took a while, probably almost, it was about 10 months from an initial discussion to finally closing on it. But again, thankful for all of it along the way, and the patience, that both parties had with each other and stuff, and the continued relationship that we have now. So we officially acquired or purchased the business on April 18th of 2024. So it's been a little while, but we haven't really publicly announced it till now, just because we wanted to be diligent and, letting customers know the switch and everything. But man, I'm excited. A lot of people have told me, well, now you're supposed to be a lot more stressed or whatever. I'm like, man, I don't feel more stressed. I mean, you're always a little stressed. Maybe I have different stresses now, but I've been trying to build this and grow this for a long time. The only difference is, like, on paper now I own it, but it's not a whole lot different than what we were doing before. And I feel really excited to be able to grow it in the direction that I want to, for sure. So
that's awesome. So with that, you talked about the partners in the business. So there's yourself as majority owner, and then Wade Weatherholt, Kyle Balliot. So Kevin was operating, obviously, as executive director. So now he's CEO, and then Wade is now COO and then chief operations officer, and then Kyle is CXO, chief experience officer. So Kyle did everything in the app, and he's like kind of the hands-on guy in the app. So having him and the CXO just makes sense, and then having Wade and COO just makes sense. So like, what I assume it was like a no brainer, but like, what are the qualities like you see in both Kyle and Wade to where it was like, oh yeah, like Wade is our COO, Kyle is our CXO. Like, I see it, you know, like operating with them on a day-to-day business. So like for you, like what was like the no brainer? Because it doesn't seem like it was ever a struggle of like, oh yeah, Wade's gonna do operations, business stuff, like, and Kyle's gonna handle.
Well, the first thing I saw in them and every one of you all is you're just awesome people, you know, and you look for people that have a lot of integrity, that, you know, honestly have more integrity than yourself. And I'm not one of those people that like has to be the smartest in the room. A lot of times I like to not be the smartest, because it means you know, I want people that are better than me, that push me, you know. So I think everybody on our team does that, to where they help me grow and they help our product grow and they make it better for customers and clients. And also, like, I just respect them as Christians. They, you know, they're great family men, they're Christian men. I just respect how they live their lives. And that's really important to me. You know, you always want to have people that you respect, on your side and with you. And so definitely that was the first thing I saw in them. It's funny, Kyle and I met, like 7 years ago. He was already working for HealthWorks, and I think I kind of ticked him off because I didn't know Kyle, but some of the HealthWorks guys were in Bowling Green testing out with my old employer. We were all friends, and was testing out a fitness, like a strength testing machine. And I tested Kyle, and I told him that he had weak quads, and apparently that really ticked him off. But I never talked to Kyle again. I mean, I saw him. I did this fitness test on him 7 years ago or 8 years ago. Maybe it might have been longer than that. I don't know. It's been a long time. Didn't talk to him for several years after that. And then, you know, it's just funny. Like he was at a point in his career where he was looking to do something a little bit different. And we, you know, Dr. Turnbow connected us and said, "Hey, Kyle, I think you'd like to work with Kevin." And Kyle, you know, had another job and was kind of helping me almost for free, honestly, after hours from his other job with HealthWorks for a couple years. I mean, just really totally bought in. And so he's really been here since ground zero. You know, our first office was at St. Joseph Church. That's 0.4 miles away from this current office. And I came to the office manager there and said, "Hey, could I rent an office from your church rectory building? Just because I need a space that was quiet." And it's in this old 1800s building, and they're actually tearing it down. I just found out they're going to tear it down. So I got to take you there before they do, because I guess it's just so old it was not worth to try to restore it. It was built in 1850 or something like that. So I was upstairs there in this room. I convinced them to let me rent it for pretty cheap, and had like no insulation, so it was freezing. I had to wear a jacket, kind of like here. Actually, we still have to wear jackets. I had to wear a jacket in the winter, and then in the summer it was so hot I wouldn't have meetings there because it was literally like 85 degrees up there. So it was a little embarrassing, but so I didn't even have meetings. But Kyle would come up here, and man, we had this little whiteboard, and we just draw things out and write ideas and visions and this and that, and he's really been instrumental, and he's been from the beginning of like what we wanted to do, what the product would look like, how we would do it.
He's helped visualize it.
He's helped all of it. Yeah. And really knows the ins and outs of the technology side and really what we want the customer to experience. And so, you know, it really made sense from a standpoint of, you know, he just kind of easily fell into that role. Kyle and I are very similar in a sense that we are both idea people. And if you have two idea people, a lot of times you have a lot of good ideas, but nothing happens from the ideas.
Yeah.
And we both recognize that with each other, and I recognize that with myself. I'm not always the best. Not that I can't do it, but I'm not always the best like operator as far as like, hey, we got this big idea. How are we going to execute on it now? Not that I can't do that, but that's not my strength. And so, you know, I was looking for somebody once we started growing that could deliver that while also delivering some other pieces of the puzzle, like physical therapy and stuff like that. And Wade and I had worked together at my previous employer. And actually, he was a college student. He worked under me. He was a PT tech, a physical therapy tech, and didn't know him real long because I guess he I can't remember what happened. I guess he was going to physical therapy school, and so he stopped working for us. But I worked with him for a little bit. Didn't really know him, but he just seemed like an impressive guy. You know, young guy. He was a college student. I don't know. What am I? 4 years older, 5 years older than Wade, I think. Wade's 32.
Maybe, yeah.
I'm 5 years older than Wade. So not a huge age gap, but when you're like 25 and 20 is a big, kind of difference.
Yeah.
That's probably like the age we were. And then Wade came back after physical therapy school after 3 years and worked for us again as a physical therapist. He was kind of my boss indirectly that time, but I was just always impressed with him. We weren't super close, but really respected him a lot. He was great with patients, and it was neat. We had some athletic trainers and some physical therapists that would do some work outside of the clinic and go out on site to different places or schools, and we would track some of the downstream revenue from them being on site at places. And we had, I think, 5 or 6 athletic trainers, and we had Wade as a physical therapist kind of doing similar work. And I would track the revenue, and Wade would generated more revenue than all those trainers combined. And I remember that I was like, man, that's pretty impressive. This guy, he's a go-getter. Like, he can go out and kind of like sell in a sense, and he's great with patients. He seems like he's got a lot of integrity. I didn't know him real close or anything, but on one of my last days there, I was the person that would go on site and do ergonomics and job testing and stuff on site with clinics or with factories and stuff. And Wade came with me because he was going to take that over when I left. And so our old boss wanted him to kind of shadow me and learn how to do it. And on the way back, I guess it was before I announced I was leaving, but my boss knew I was going to go at this point. I hadn't told everybody else. And so that's why Wade came with me. And Wade didn't realize that, I guess, but that's why he was there. He was shadowing. So when I did leave, eventually he would be able to kind of take that stuff over. And so on the way back, I said, hey, man, I just want you to know what's going on. Like, I'm going to be leaving to help start this new business here in a month or so. And kind of told him what it was and stuff like that. And he just listened, and that was pretty much it. And then on my very last day at the clinic, he pulled me out into the parking lot, which was kind of odd because, again, we weren't super close. And he's like, hey, if you ever need a physical therapist, like, let me know. I think it's really cool what you're doing. And so that's kind of how it started. And that just stuck in my brain. And one day we had coffee over at Spencer's Coffee, and he actually had moved back home after I'd started the business, and was the director of a physical therapy clinic at a hospital system back home, and had a great job. I mean, one that you kind of work your whole career to get to. And he had that job at like 28, he had a great job. And I just told him, I was like, man, I need somebody to help me part-time. And he said, hey, I'm all in, and started helping me. And then I think he might have said it on your podcast, but he was in the, after they delivered their first babies at the hospital. And he tells his wife, Janae, he says, hey, I think I want to quit my job and go work with Kevin full time.
Yeah.
Which, was less income than what he was making. I mean, he made a big sacrifice. But what I realized in that time, one, that this guy's obviously fully committed to the mission of what we're doing. I mean, he was walked away from an amazing opportunity where most people would never do, would never do that. But he was so bought into what our mission was. He was willing to do that. But the other thing I realized during that time was he was really, really good at operations. He was the kind of guy that could take my ideas and make them a reality. And so Kyle and I had a lot of cool ideas on dry erase boards, but those ideas didn't really start getting implemented until Wade got involved a little bit later. And it was pretty clear that like that was his strength. And so for the last couple of years, he's been handling kind of business development stuff, but has really started being more in that operational type role. And, once we obviously transitioned the business, it just made sense to make him COO. And so doing a great job, is running day-to-day operations. Kyle's making sure the client and the customer has a great experience. So he's handling everything within the app. And then I always just say, I just kind of sit back and let you guys do your thing, and just make sure everything runs smooth. Because, I've got great people under me, and that's, and you can't do it all. I've realized, like, you just can't do it all yourself once you get to a certain point. And not that we're huge or anything, we're still small, we're a small team, but I definitely can't do it all myself. And you guys can do it better than me. And so I just sit back and let you do it, and, help where I can. But yeah, I mean, I think so. It starts with high character people that obviously have a lot of talent, and maybe sometimes it's raw talent. I'd say that maybe a little bit with you, like, a lot of raw talent I saw a couple years ago. You weren't necessarily a video kind of guy or that, but you had the ability, plus a lot of other stuff, and then you just kind of nurture that and try to steer it and make it come to life,
Yeah, I definitely feel like that's I'm sure everybody probably has that similar experience here too. Like when I first joined, I was like, full transparency, like I've never done this as a full-time job. Like I have just done it for myself, like my personal YouTube channel and all that stuff. And I kind of feel like that's how everybody has been here, but I think that's the beauty of MuuvWell, is like you can you can kind of nurture, you can be led or like molded into the position that you kind of see it to be.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we're just now getting to a point where it's like, where like my position, just mine, is like starting to become what we talked about in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think part of that comes with like, there is a little bit more creative freedom, like owning a business, obviously, and just more freedom in general. So where like what areas have you felt like, and this is no fault to anybody, like this is just simply like you have full control of the business now, and you don't have to necessarily go through other people to get things done. So where have you seen like the biggest change in like freedom to do things now? Or is it just overall like I can say whatever I say goes, essentially?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's not like we're out here saying a lot of crazy stuff, but I think we kind of represented a different company before, and that's not a bad thing at all. You just want to make sure your marketing and stuff kind of jives with what they're doing too.
Right.
And their company's different than ours. HealthWorks does different services, different things, and it's hard to tell your story when you're also telling somebody else's story, and then they would say the exact same thing. Like, they're not going to talk about wellness the same way we do. And so I don't know. I think a little bit you always, and you have in the back of your brain, like you want to be making sure you represent their brand well and stuff like that. And probably for me, maybe it kind of held me back a little bit of kind of getting what I wanted out across. I don't think they've ever they didn't put any pressure on me, like you have to say this or anything. But I think just subconsciously, you want to do a good job and represent both brands really well. I think now that we're independent, I think it just, you're like, hey, I know how I want it represented, and I'm not representing anybody else, and so I can do it this certain way. I don't know the way we're doing is any better, but it's it's fun. I mean,
it's a lot of fun.
I don't know that we're putting videos of me skating and stuff on there before, but it's fun doing it now.
Yeah.
But I would say too, like, I think I just have a better understanding of what we're trying to do now, and a better feel for it, and understanding our clients better. I mean, you just grow every year with business, and you start to get to know, all of our clients. You just start to get to know more personally, and what makes them tick and what helps them the most. And that's our mission, is helping people, live better lives, be the best version of themselves. And I think we've just figured out from a content creative standpoint what kind of stuff does that better. And I think we've been able to align that a little bit more closely with our passions too. And
I agree.
It's fun, man. It's awesome. And I really, really enjoy what we're doing now. And I don't know what it is. I think just sometimes things just change, and I don't know, a lot of it was like intentional. But I feel like the content we're creating and stuff, and I've seen for you, what we realized is, like, I think a lot of, when you're going through a transition, it's just hard for everybody, even though not everybody on our team knew really what was going on all the time or anything like that. But I think you feel it, and people, and it kind of holds everybody back to where they're like, man, there's just uncertainty there.
Yeah. And
now I think that it's very clear, transparent, and everybody knows what's going on. And technically we all kind of work for a different company.
Yeah.
I think everybody, I noticed with you, it's just like this big switch, it's like, man, everybody just all of a sudden just like went into their roles, they understood what they were supposed to do, and just started going. It was kind of weird. It wasn't like all of it was like strategic or anything like that. I mean, some of it was, but some of it was just natural. Like, I think some people maybe felt paralyzed in that transitional period, especially when we did get to a point where we could tell everybody, hey, we're going to acquire the business. But then it took, things they just take a while with legal and stuff like that. And there's just a lot of waiting and stuff like that. And it was so good for all of us, I think, to get past that. And HealthWorks too. It's like, man, it's like a clean, like, we're done with this, and now we can all really focus on growing our businesses the way we need to. So I think it's been good for everybody, and along with that, seems like there's been more creative freedom for whatever reason, or maybe just more ideas. I don't know, but I know I'm just like all the time now having ideas. Maybe because I was putting all my creative energy into just making sure the business transition. Man, that's where so much of my effort was the last several months, and doing these little things. And now, we're able to get past that, and it's just like, boom, it's like all these doors open that you didn't realize were closed at the time.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, speaking from my perspective too, with the transition was, I think there is like that feeling of almost like paralyzed is probably the best way to say it. Cause it's like, well, because you are representing another brand. And I'm like, just because we have like an idea of something we think would be cool, like we put that out there and we're associated with another company, then like, if they don't like it, then like they may ask like, hey, can you not post that type of stuff? And then, which that never did happen, but you're just more aware of those things because like we are two totally different companies. Like the stuff, especially from like a social media standpoint and like, you know, branding standpoint. And not that one's better than the other, but I definitely felt that, yeah, or I guess the difference is now on my end is like, I feel like now I don't have to ask as many questions.
Yeah.
And when we come up with something and we're like, oh yeah, let's do it. Like it gets done and then I can just do it.
Yeah.
Like whether it's like a podcast, something with a podcast, whether it's like a piece of equipment, whether it's a social post, a YouTube video, like the YouTube series I'm doing now with Wade, like every week I get all the stuff I need, I edit it, I review it, and then I'll post it and then it's out. Like it's not back and forth of all this different stuff. And so I feel like I have a little bit more, I feel like I've been able to slip into my role a little bit better because there's not like so many question marks on stuff of like, well, let me just double check or you know, like, well, maybe we'll hold off just to be safe.
Yeah.
Because you always kind of follow that rule of thumb. Like even whenever I was cheering, they're like, if you have to ask if you can post it on social media, like you shouldn't post it, that type of thing, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like now that barrier is kind of gone and now we're like, if we think it's cool, let's just go for it. Like, let's just do it.
It's cool. Yeah.
And so it is really cool. And I think I've told Sergio too, like, I feel like after the first meeting, after, you know, like you all had acquired the business and you're like, yeah, we're MuuvWell LLC. I was like, I feel like it was like everybody's mind was one and it's like, all right, like here's our job, like here's our roles and like here's what it's going to look like now.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I feel like it was kind of like an unspoken thing where everybody was kind of just like, okay, like let's do it. And everybody's passion was kind of like, or everybody's like fire was kind of lit back up in a different way.
Yeah.
And like you, Wade and Kyle can like now like authentically run the business as if, you know, because as if you own it because you do own it now.
Right.
And so that's been a lot of fun too, to like from an employee side.
Oh, good. Hopefully we're doing okay.
Yeah. And it is fun too, like on my end to like, we get to like update stuff differently and like just change things up, you know? So, so that is a lot of fun, but from the business acquisition process, was it harder than you thought it was going to be? Was it easier than you thought it was going to be? Or was it kind of what you had expected?
Man, I don't know. I didn't really know what to expect and all that. I've never bought a business before or started, you know, a business from scratch that I owned. Everybody told me it's going to take way longer than you thought. And that was pretty accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you think you're right there at the finish line and then something else happens. Not always bad. It just changes stuff. It was a great learning process. What I really learned in the process, I was telling my wife Amanda this last night, was you don't have to know everything. You know, I think a lot of people want to start a business or own a business, but they're like, well, I don't know how to do X, Y, Z. Like, well, there's a lot of really good people out there that do know how to do it. And so that's it was kind of humbling in the sense of like, that's what this process taught me is I can't do this all on my own. That feeds into the bigger picture stuff, like a God thing too, by the way. But I can't do this all on my own. I need people to help me. And I was able to find, you know, tools, resources, and ask people for help that, you know, might otherwise not had. And it's kind of humbling in a way, just to admit like, man, I don't even know what this means. Like this attorney just sent this over and I don't even understand it. And so, you know, then I have to go to our attorney. Can you explain this to me? And so I learned a lot in the process, and that's what was really, really cool was that. But I would say overall it was pretty smooth. I mean, our negotiations were all really smooth. We didn't have any of those, like, you know, you see on the movie kind of intense negotiations. It was all super civil and everything. And so I think, you know, I was just lucky to be working with really good people. And I'm sure that could be a lot harder. But you know, and then like securing financing and those kind of things, I didn't know how to do all that stuff before, honestly. And again, you just see God's hand in it, just setting the right people in your path at the right time, and people that are on your side and advocate for you. And you know, it was really neat. So I think for me, the process taught me that, hey man, ask for help, admit when you don't know everything. It's okay. And then just, I've realized, like, and I'm realizing this more than ever, is like you really don't have control of anything in your life, you know. And I think owning a business, just in the short amount of times, I've already started to discover that. And I can't wait when I'm 5, 10, 15, 20 years into owning a business. I'll discover this more every month, every year. It's like God's totally in control of this thing.
Yeah.
You know, we could be really successful. We could do all the right things, and then still not be successful if it's not what God wills. And, you know, we could do a lot of the wrong things and still be successful if it is what God wills. And, you know, it's just like, man, God could take this away at any moment. And I hope he doesn't, you know, but it's like, man, I just got to submit to whatever his will is. And I'm learning that more and more in my life. And there's things that come up that are hard, and not just business, but outside of business and stuff. And you want to have control of so much. And I was talking to my old boss this morning about this. I was like, I was in Rivergate, outside of Nashville's big populated area by this mall. We were sitting at a Chick-fil-A last night with my kids and my wife. And I was looking out at this main road by Rivergate Mall, and it's like a 3-lane road, outskirts of Nashville, just thousands of cars, going through. And I was like, man, it's crazy. Like every car that goes past here has got at least one person in it, but oftentimes more than one person. And every person in every car, has some kind of agenda or idea or thing they want to accomplish that revolves around them. And but then you look and you're like, man, there's thousands of people out there that are doing this, have the same approach, the same mindset, trying to get to where they need to go. And then you just think about, from there, I started thinking about the whole world. It's like there's billions of people who are trying to, and it's like, none of us are in control of anything. None of us are. We have a God in heaven that is watching over each one of us and can hear what our needs are, knows us better than we know ourselves. And he's totally in control, and he's steering everything. And no matter how much we think that we're in control and that we can steer the ship where we want it to go, we have no control over it. And we can do certain things that definitely have outcomes. I'm not saying that, there's definitely outcomes from our actions. But when it comes down to it, ultimately, God is sovereign, and he knows what's going to happen, and he's going to control it. And, I'm trying to do a better job of listening to what God's will is, and just letting him tell me what to do. And, I think anything we've done with business or anything, it's like, none of this is anything I've accomplished. And we're so small. I mean, we're not like this massive company making millions of dollars and all this stuff. We're still small, but we've done a lot, I think, in a shorter period of time. And I think we're doing a good job with our clients and really impacting lives and helping people. But none of the stuff that we've accomplished so far, it's nothing I've done. It's stuff that God already had planned out, and he's just using me, and I'm okay with him using me. I'm not smart enough, talented enough to do any of this stuff myself. And the moment I start thinking that it is all just for me is when we're not going to be successful. So what I'm trying to understand and listen and learn is like, man, all you can do is take time to pray, listen to God. And if you feel like he's telling you to do something, if you feel like honestly that's where God's directing you, you go that direction. And then in the process, you realize you made a wrong turn, you just correct, but you just keep trying to go the direction God's calling you. And I think that's the most important part, that the buying the business process, and then now owning the business, and then, trying to grow the business. It's telling me, hey, I'm not in control. Somebody else is in control of this thing, and I just need to do my part wherever he's leading me. I don't feel like I can go sit at the beach for 2 weeks and I think we have this vision of business ownership. I need to figure it out if it is this way, but you can just sit back and relax at the beach and be successful. And that's not. I don't feel like, hey, now that I own this, I can just take my foot off the gas or anything. If anything, it's even a more of a heightened sense of like, hey, I've got to have some grit and get after it. And I don't know. Maybe it just hasn't sunk in, but I was like, I'm not going to just stop working hard, and if anything, it's made me want to work even harder. And I think everybody do. But you know what? I love it. I love building stuff. I love seeing stuff through. It's not always easy. The process of this was, not always easy or rocky or smooth. Sometimes it was rocky, but I'm just remembering, with everything that gets difficult, like it's just God refining you. It's just God making you a better version of yourself. Every little bump in the road. And I used to talk a lot about roadblocks. And I'm like, man, that's just a roadblock in our way. It's getting in our way. And then I had a mindset shift a couple years ago. Like, no, it's just a speed bump. Like it'll slow me down a little bit. It'll slow me down, but it's not going to halt forward progress. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to go over that bump. I'm going to tackle it. It's going to maybe not be comfortable there for a second, but in a week, I'm probably not even going to remember this, and so that's what this whole process has taught me. And I think, everything I'm doing in my life right now is just it's a refining process to try to get me closer to God, and if that's going through something hard with business, that's going through something hard with personal life, as long as it's pulling me closer to God, hey, that's okay. And so I'm just trying to learn how to embrace all those moments. And it's not always easy, obviously. But that's what I'm trying to do. And you know what, like, I hope, I have this business forever, and we do make millions of dollars and impact millions of lives. And that's our goal. And we're pretty obvious and clear about our goals and where we want to go with this thing. But when I get to the end of my life, like, that's not going to be the most important part. It's going to be the relationships I made in the process, the lives that I touched, and those kind of things. It's not going to matter how much money I have and all that kind of stuff. And so, I'm excited about the journey. I think the journey is where you grow. It's not always about getting to the destination. It's the what you learn along the way. And I know there's going to be ups and downs. Just trying not to ride the peaks too high and the valleys too low, and just stay consistent. That's been kind of my goal all year of my life. It's just just be consistent.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm doing that from a leader standpoint. You don't have to say I am on air just to sound good, but I'm trying to just be more consistent with how I lead people and stuff too. And just everything in life, my faith, how I am with my family and stuff like that, because it can, building something, creating something there's lots of ups and downs for sure. So like some moments you feel like you're, on top of the world, some like 5 minutes later you could feel like the worst person on earth. I mean, it goes up and down sometimes, but just remember, like, hey, it's just part of the process and part of the journey is what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I was thinking about while you were talking about trying to fulfill God's will and Him using you. One thing you told me, I don't even know how long ago it was, and it's something that I still think about, and it's just a nice reminder, but it's also my reminder to like be intentional with my relationship with God and other areas of my life. Is you made a comment one time, and I think we were maybe on the topic about like I feel like it's so easy for us as humans to kind of like question God. We're like, well, if God's real, like, why did I do this then? Like, why am I being this way? Why am I this way?
Yeah.
And you had said, well, the beautiful thing that God did was He gave humans free will to like take their own actions, but just because you have that free will, like, you still have to be intentional and listen to God.
Yeah.
And you still have to be intentional with your actions. So you have the ability to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But you have to still take the time, if you care enough, to sit and listen to God and talk to God. And you're going to have those moments where you're like, you know what? No, like I'm going to turn down that baseball job, that dream baseball job I thought was my dream job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like for me was like and the thing was very subconscious in the moment. And this was like a time me not even being intentional, but like whenever I left like my last job, there was like a corporate job, and I would like to come here and like take this job, and it's like the best job I've had, So it's like those little things, and that's like a constant reminder that's like you need to be intentional with your actions and everything you do. And for you, that's like being a good leader and showing up and being intentional, being a good leader, being a good dad, husband.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that whenever I'm struggling, like with whether it's like temptation or just like anxiety, a lot of times I'm like, okay, this is like, I have free will to feel these things and do these things, but I just need to like take a breath, talk to God, and let Him kind of talk to me, and pray for. One thing I pray every single time I pray, I always ask for intention, because I'm just so sporadic.
Yeah.
And so I always ask for intention, because even whenever I pray for that, I always feel myself coming back to areas of my life where I need more consistency.
Yeah.
And I think that's powerful for me. And so that's something I always think about. I don't even know when that conversation was.
Yeah, I don't know.
But that was like really
probably on a run. That's why we need to go run.
probably.
Man.
I know we were just talking about that. But before we wrap up, I want you to touch on, you said it earlier on the podcast about how you've always wanted to own something. You always wanted to build stuff. And we had a conversation a couple weeks ago about you think that was like the perks of being homeschooled and like always wanted to build something. So like what does it feel like now to like actually own because we are a small company, but we're big enough where you have to worry about payroll. You have to worry about benefits for your employees.
6 full-time, 3 part-time employees. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
So
not tiny.
Yeah. So how does it feel to go from your little science fair and your science museum in your garage to like, owning a business? Like, how does that feel?
Yeah. You mean, I realized like, I just turned 37 on the 5th, a little over a week ago. And I realized like, oh man, I wish I remembered that quote I read to you. So when I told everybody I was buying the business, and I read that quote from Davy Crockett, I started crying and all this stuff. But it was basically, the quote was something like, you reach a point in your life where you're either going to explore and go all in and take a risk, or you're not. And gosh, that hit home so hard, because I realized like this is my opportunity to make a move. One, it's something that I'm really passionate about and I've built. And so definitely wanted to own it because like, man, I, played a big part in creating this, and feel very passionate and strong about what we're doing and the work we're doing and the people we're helping. But I also realized, like, if I don't make a move to buy a business now, like, I don't know that I will when I'm 45 or 50. Not saying I couldn't, but I just felt God telling me, like, this is your time. Like, this is your time. You got to go for it. And man, I don't know. I don't know that it's set in. Honestly, I told Amanda this other day. I was like, I don't know that it's fully set in that I own it. Honestly, because I'm doing the exact same work I did before.
Yeah.
The only difference is like I pay a lot more taxes and stuff. But I don't know. It's very. I'm doing almost exactly the same work.
Right.
There's obviously some other stuff that's taking up a lot of my time that you don't have to do when you don't own it. Like today I just couldn't get anything accomplished because I was doing other things that just, and part of owning a business. But I don't know if it's fully set in, to be honest with you. I don't know. I just don't know that. I mean, I took a vacation a couple weeks ago, and I had time and space to think about it. But it's just like, I've just been grinding at this thing for 4 years.
Right.
And I haven't, I don't know. It just hasn't really set in. I will say it feels good. And I think that's why I have peace. I don't feel more stressed now because I feel like this is what I do feel like God was calling me to this. And it was, I do feel like this is the direction I was supposed to go. And so I have a lot of peace about it. And I'm not like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, I own it. What do I do now? Like, I don't know. I'm not going through that, but it definitely feels good to, like, I'm a little uncomfortable right now. Like, as far as like, I have taken a step into some waters that I just haven't known before. And I really like that, actually. I've had some days, even today, I came home to lunch and I was telling Amanda stuff I was going through, and she's like, well, this is what you wanted, from a business standpoint. And she's right, and just trying to embrace every moment, even the tough stuff. And I know, like, this is just making me a better person, better leader, everything I go through. And I don't know. I know this is not going to be the last business I own. I know that. I know. I just have so many. I just can't stop. You know how I am, man. I just always thinking about different things, different opportunities. And I think that's been one thing I've had to really back off of, is like, man, stop chasing all this other stuff and just focus on what you're doing.
Yeah, I've seen that change.
Oh, that's
for
good.
sure.
That's good. Because I've intentionally had to make myself do that, because I mean, just on Friday, I had another idea. And I was like, oh man, and some of these ideas are totally unrelated to what we're doing.
Right.
But I just love creating stuff. And I think being homeschooled, I don't know. I've been outside the box my whole life.
Right.
I mean, I have 2 older brothers that homeschooled, a little sister that homeschooled. I never went to public school. I went to public school for 6 months, and it was when I was 24 years old, and I went there as a teacher. I waited until I was 24 years old to go to public school. And, and there's nothing wrong with it. But what I saw when I was working in the school system was like, man, there's not a lot of room for creativity here compared to being homeschooled. And that was the beautiful thing, man. And there's people that homeschool really, really well, and there's some that don't. And, and of course you always hear about the ones that don't do it right. But there's a lot of people that are doing it really well. And we homeschool our kids now. My wife does an amazing job, but I was, my parents did it really well. And I was able to, travel with my dad, who was a baseball scout, and go all over the country, be in major league locker rooms, to sit with him and other scouts and evaluate players when I was 5 years old on up. And, was able to meet amazing people. I was able to, do stuff outside of baseball too. Obviously baseball is a big track of mine, but, I was able to go, we did a lot of stuff outdoors and camp. And that's why I love the outdoors now. Had other homeschool friends that were super creative. Had a lot of homeschool friends that were great musicians and great artists and great everything. And so, I feel like it really developed me as a person. And it's so funny. Like, I look back at, especially my teenage years, and were kind of hard for me, honestly, like, especially like middle school. And I've talked about this publicly. I mean, I really struggled socially, not because I was homeschooled. I was the shy homeschooler. Like, all the other homeschoolers were fine. It was me. It wasn't because I was homeschooled. It's just how I'm wired. I'm just very introverted, and I had a lot of insecurity. And I still do, I'm still insecure at times and stuff. But I remember I was so focused on baseball when I was especially 15, 16. Well, really till I was 28 years old, to be honest with you. But I was going to a homeschool tutorial in Nashville. It's called Whitfer Academy, and it was started by a lady named Colleen Whitfer, and just an amazing lady. She has no idea how much she's touched my life, but she really specialized in literature, has a love for arts and literature, and she taught literature, British literature, American literature there, and her classes were really hard. I mean, we were reading a novel, like, Tale of Two Cities, every week. We'd read a novel and write a 5-paragraph essay every week. It was intense. Yeah. And man, it was a lot of work. And I remember she made us, I had a writing class with her, and I had to journal every week. And I was like, insecure, kind of shy kid, and I didn't want anybody to know what was going on in my head at the time. And the only thing I felt secure in was baseball, because I was good on the baseball field. And that was like where I was confident.
Mm-hmm.
And all I would write about in that journal was baseball. Like, yeah, I had a baseball game, blah, blah, blah. And, it was just so surface level.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd had to turn those in every week, and she'd look at them and she'd give them back to us the following week. And I remember her making a note in there, and it was like, multiple times, like, life is more than about just baseball. And she would like kind of get on to me about it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I didn't change anything, But I remember her reading A Tale of Two Cities to us out loud in class. And I remember her reading this, like one of the first lines, like, it's the best of times, the worst of times. And she reads this opening paragraph. She stops and she's just crying, because it's just like so beautiful, And she really instilled in me a love of literature and arts. And I never admitted this to anybody, because I'm like this athlete guy.
Yeah.
But so much of what we do now with MuuvWell is fueled by like that period of my life. And to be around other people that were so passionate about stuff that was so unrelated to what I was, focused on, which was baseball. So I got exposed to a lot of different people, a lot of creative people, and typically homeschool kids, they're just wired different, because man, you're just, I don't know, and some of us are dorky and stuff, and I was dorky, but we're just constantly trying and building things. And that's me and my brothers out in the yard. That's what we did. We just build stuff in the yard and build this, build that, and make businesses. And it was cool. And I think so much of that was pivotal to what I'm doing now. And I think, my brother, man, I have two older brothers, three boys in our family. We're all entrepreneurs. We're all self-employed, and all, doing crazy things. My brother Jim is on his way. He just left Florida this morning. He's running to Tennessee. So he started today. Okay. Destin, Florida is where they ended up. So he's running the HOTS ultra marathon, 381 miles.
Oh, he's doing the HOTS again?
Yeah. So it started in Destin, Florida this morning. He's going to run 381 miles north to Chattanooga, Tennessee. And I don't know, man. We're just, that's if Jim, that's pretty normal for him to do stuff like that.
Yeah. He's done like at least something of that capacity.
Yeah, but when we were kids, times. Like we talked about doing stuff like that before it even existed, and it just always felt like the possibilities were endless. And I still feel that way. I still feel like, man, we are so blessed. We're blessed that we have an amazing Savior that died for us, that saved us, and then we can live freely in that. But also, we live in an amazing country in America where you can do anything. Yeah, I mean, you really can.
Yeah,
and some people have advantages over others. Yes, for sure, I recognize that. But it is the land of opportunity, and there's so many things that haven't been invented yet, that haven't been created, or haven't been done well yet, that we can still do and have an impact on people. And so I'm excited about MuuvWell. I'm excited about the direction we're going. I'm totally sold out that we're going to help millions of people with this product, and I'm stuck committed to that. And it's just one small verse in the powerful play, but we're going to try to contribute our verse and see what happens.
Yeah. So that was my last question for you, was where do you see MuuvWell? What's your end goal, or like big picture, to help millions of people? Or
Yes. Yeah. So we want to inspire and invigorate workforces nationwide. And we want to help millions of people be the best version of themselves. That obviously means growing our team, growing our staff, growing revenue, not to be rich, but to be able to give back generously, but also invest in our employees, and be able to create a workplace like no other as well.
Yeah.
And so that's where we see it going. Again, God's in control, and he may have totally different plans, and that's okay. And if we feel convicted that God's calling us a different direction, we'll pivot and go that direction. But that's where we feel that God is calling us right now. And that's what we're going to continue to pursue and do, and recognize it's not going to be easy, and there's going to be bumps in the road. But we're just going to go after it and do our best, and just come every day to try to glorify him and help our clients to the best we can. And we'll see where it goes. I'm excited though.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I'm excited to be a part of it. And and being able to see it before all this happened and see how many changes there are, because like we're at a point now where whoever joins the team, like they won't ever, and like there's parts of it that I didn't see that Sergio saw. There's parts of it that I didn't see that Wade and Kyle saw. And so pretty much from this point forward, like there hasn't been any new team members added yet. So all they'll know is MuuvWell LLC.
Yeah.
So it is
I
cool.
mean, it's really come a long way, and a lot of ideas in 2020. You know, I started March 1st of 2020. COVID shut down the world 2 weeks later, and a lot of dreaming, a lot of ideas, and it's neat. I feel like we're finally just now really seeing what I envisioned in 2020 starting to happen. There's a lot of hustle and a lot of kind of just crazy stuff along the way that a lot of people never know. I mean, you know, a lot of it, but we've been working really hard and pushing really hard for 4 years. And it's probably why I got a gray patch in my beard now. I didn't have this before we started, but yeah, it's special, man. It's special. Those memories and being in the office at St. Joe over there is special. And yeah, it's all I can think is like, we're so blessed already at this point. And I can't wait to see what else will happen. So.
Well, I know we've got a ton of momentum too, with just like people are starting to figure out who we are, what we do, want to use us, want to help their employees. And I think that like everything that MuuvWell does, I know that everything MuuvWell does compared to other corporate wellness companies or programs is just totally different in the best way. So I'm grateful to be a part of it, and I'm excited that it's going to explode now, because there's just so much like freedom and energy and spark behind it. So I'm excited. But if you guys are listening to this, definitely encourage you to just go check out MuuvWell online. Our website's MuuvWell.com. There's a ton of info on there. It has all of our staff on there, so you can see everybody who works at MuuvWell. All of our socials are just MuuvWell on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all that. And then YouTube, we're streaming right now. So we try to stream a podcast each week. Obviously, with holidays and PTO, things like that change. But typically, we're streaming a podcast every week, and then we release a podcast every week on audio platforms. So subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have a series going right now with Wade. He's doing Ironman 70.3 Louisville on August 18th, and then Kevin's doing Pinhoti 100 November 2nd. November 2nd of this year. So we'll wrap up Wade's Ironman training series in August, and then we'll go right into Kevin's. And
man, I feel like I've got a lot to uphold. Wade's doing an awesome job with his. Shoot, man.
Yeah, he is.
I'm not great about documenting stuff, so hopefully I do okay. I don't let you down, but I'm excited about that. Cool.
Yeah, it's good. So we have a lot of really cool stuff going on, man, and I'm excited that we get to share the story of MuuvWell and everybody who's a part of it. So it'll be good. But anything else you want to add before you close it out?
No, I don't think so. I just appreciate everybody's support, even just outside of the business. There's just people in the Bowling Green community, as well.
Sure.
Like, we've had so many people just give of their time and stuff. We've had a lot of people like basically work for us for free along the years, and it just means a lot that people have just been so supportive, and there's a lot of people bought into the mission that don't contribute or don't get any reward from it financially or anything like that.
Right.
And so that's always humbling. And so I just appreciate everybody that's supported along the way, especially my family and my wife Amanda, who's really my backbone, and so appreciative of her. So
all right, man. Well, thanks for coming on today. It feels good to be able to like talk about it.
I'm excited.
It's been months in the works of like, okay, when are we going to do this? When are we going to do that? So we're excited. We're going to keep on putting out some awesome stuff and keep some momentum going for the business so we can keep on growing and keep on doing cool stuff. But thanks for tuning in for another episode. If you're streaming right now, we appreciate it. Yeah. And if you're listening on audio platforms when this does release, thank you as well. That's a wrap on another episode of Adapt and Achieve. Thanks, y'all.